Hello there, welcome to the channel. Today is going to be a little different. We're going to be talking mainly about the Star Wars fandom, kind of the state of Star Wars as a whole, and my channel and the subject matter of my channel, that of course being Star Wars. So we're kind of just talking about Star Wars and the future of my channel, so let's get into it. I started my channel back in May of 2022, which feels like forever ago. Back then, I was a fresh-faced nerd ready to make Star Wars lore, news, and review videos. I know this may be sounding like I am quitting Star Wars content or YouTube, but I want to reassure you I'm not going to do that. I took a nice long break, and I'm happy to be back. However, I have begun to question Star Wars as the sole subject of my channel. And let me explain why. The state of Star Wars has always been rocky, with strong, passionate fans voicing their opinions on what makes Star Wars great and what projects frankly suck. But honestly, this feels different. The realm of this fandom feels off, and it has for some time. Of course, I could say that many fandoms like Marvel or even Lord of the Rings have a similar feeling, but we're not going to talk about those. We're going to talk about Star Wars because we are a Star Wars channel. At least we are right now. Now, some people chalk up the problems to Disney or maybe a lack of George Lucas inspiration, and you can name whatever issue you cite as the source of the downfall of Star Wars. Regardless, it's clear by looking not only at my channel, which is a little fish in the sea of Star Wars YouTube, but larger channels that cover Star Wars. Their views are down. Engagement over the brand is limited, to say the least, especially with lore videos. And when Star Wars videos do pop, they are mostly about some new drama within Disney Lucasfilm, or maybe a new TV series, less about the show's content and more about how they don't live up to expectations. Going beyond YouTube videos, Star Wars TV shows have had such a minuscule impact on pop culture that most people haven't even heard of them. And by most people, I'm talking about the normies. Now, obviously, Star Wars fans as a whole, you and me, obviously you're watching this because you're a Star Wars fan, you're subscribed to my channel because you're a Star Wars fan. You're going to watch those shows. What Disney and Lucasfilm need is for those normie audiences to watch Star Wars. And when that doesn't happen, then you see low viewership. Obviously, with shows like The Mandalorian, you didn't have this. They struck gold with that show. And Grogu and Mando were, like, who knows how much merchandise they've sold. They've sold so much. It's insane. But beyond The Mandalorian, they've never been able to capture that same lightning in a bottle. I think the closest they got was Book of Boba Fett. But honestly, in my opinion, that's because of The Mandalorian episodes that were placed in the middle of the season, which is wild to do. But also the appearances of Luke Skywalker. Like, Luke Skywalker is a big draw. And Mando, being as popular as he is in Star Wars fandom right now, he's a big draw as well. But if you look at other shows, like look at the most recent one, Skeleton Crew, it had such a low viewership total, like minutes watched, that it was below The Acolyte, which The Acolyte was already at the bottom of the list, which is crazy to think about because it was the number 2 Disney Plus original on their streaming service, which just goes to show that Disney Plus is not doing very well. But streaming services is a whole nother subject to talk about, whether or not they're working or if they're starting to revert back to cable. That's just a whole nother discussion. What I'm trying to get at is there has been a steady decline of interest in Star Wars. And while there is hope, and I will get to that, the fall off didn't happen overnight. It all started with the sequels, and now I'm not discrediting you as a fan if you enjoyed this trilogy. I frankly have no problem with your feelings on the sequels. You can love them, you can hate them. It really doesn't matter to me. There are still aspects of it that I enjoyed. And honestly, when those sequels came out, that was such an exciting time for Star Wars. I think most fans were really pumped and really looking forward to see what the plans were. And obviously with The Last Jedi, that's kind of when things started getting a little muddled. People were very upset with Luke Skywalker. They were like blown away that they would just kill off Snoke like that. And then just focus on Kylo Ren as the main villain. And honestly, it just went to show that the sequels weren't planned out very well. But the sequels caused a massive split in the fandom, and you can blame the fans for this split, but Disney Lucasfilm is also culpable, especially with how poorly their public relations team is. I think another issue is the cancellation of Star Wars story movies, those like Rogue One and Solo. Because of these cancellations, we missed out on a trilogy of Obi-Wan movies, a Book of Boba Fett movie, Rogue Squadron, and who knows what else. Now, these movies also could have been sidelined because of Disney Plus. Maybe they wanted to focus on making TV series to fill their catalog. Who knows? Now, some people might say that the movies would have diluted the brand, but I would argue that the television series have already done that regardless. And the absence of Star Wars from the box office hasn't helped either. I think Star Wars is such a big brand and it's such a cinematic experience that to not have it in the movie theaters, like the absence has been felt. Like we have felt the absence, and it's taken way too long for a movie to be in theaters. And of course now they have the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming, and of course they have announced other plans, but they've just been canceling so many movies left and right. It feels like nothing is going to make it to the big screen, and that sucks as a Star Wars fan, and it sucks for the brand. I'm trying not to ramble on too much about the fall off, and I don't want to be too negative on this subject. And honestly, I need to just get to where I stand as a Star Wars YouTuber, which we'll get to. But my final point is in regards to accountability. With how poorly this brand has been managed, you would expect to see a change in leadership, something to signal to the fans that change is coming and for the better. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any accountability. Star Wars is bleeding money, and its fan base is hanging on by a thread, if not disappearing. While glimmers of hope exist within Star Wars as a brand, mainly in projects like The Mandalorian and Grogu, Andor Season 2, and Ahsoka Season 2, that hope is faint, but then again, hope is what Star Wars is all about. All of this leads me into my hope for my channel. I've been contemplating whether I continue just covering Star Wars, or if I add some other universes or fandoms into the mix. Like most people, I have interests beyond just Star Wars. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, Warhammer 40k, Halo, Marvel, Avatar The Last Airbender, and of course more recently I've been playing a lot of Helldivers. I really like that universe. Now, what I'm considering is not necessarily covering all my interests and hobbies, because that's not realistic. However, there's plenty of aspects to fictional universes like Warhammer, Halo, Marvel, and even Helldivers that could be fun to explore and even compare alongside Star Wars, which I've done with some of my head-to-head videos. I would very much like to get into some Lord of the Rings content, but I think that deserves its own channel or podcast or something. I think keeping the fantasy and sci-fi fantasy separate is a good idea. Honestly, I really enjoy making videos and talking about these fictional universes, so I know I want to continue doing that, but whether I restrict myself to Star Wars or expand the channel beyond is still up in the air, although my decision is making its way back to the ground. If I do expand the channel, that'll require some rebranding, maybe changing the channel name to Oddballs Squadron or something. If you have any ideas, recommend them in the comments. Also, something to consider is the fact that the YouTube algorithm doesn't necessarily like when you shift your content. It likes to put you in a box, but honestly, I've noticed that because I took such a long break, and also because I had to delete all my shorts, the activity on the channel has declined a little bit. So in reality, this could be the perfect time for a content shift. Either way, this was more of me exploring my thoughts on what I wanted to do with the channel and kind of getting those thoughts out to you guys, because I want to see what you guys think. Obviously, nothing is final. Who knows, maybe we just stick to Star Wars and just really grind out Star Wars content. But honestly, I would love to cover things like Warhammer 40k, because I think that universe is becoming very popular. And not just, I don't want to cover it just because it's popular. I want to cover it because I really like it. I've been really getting into a lot of the books. I've been reading a lot of those, and they're fantastic. I just really like that universe. It's very different than Star Wars. It's very dark, but it's pretty exciting. And, obviously covering Halo is really cool. That universe has always been something I've loved ever since I was a kid. But then again, nothing's final. We'll see where we're at. I'll come up with a decision hopefully soon and start cranking out some other videos. That'll be really exciting. The channel has started some new projects, though. We have started a podcast called Flight Control, so you should check that out under the podcast tab of the channel. You can also check it out on Spotify. It'd be cool to get you over there as well. And we're multi-streaming, so we're streaming both on YouTube and on Twitch. So you can follow my channel on Twitch as well. That'll be cool to see you on there. Hopefully you can come out with a schedule for streaming pretty soon. But again, lots of plans for the channel. But for now, I appreciate you watching and making it all the way to the end. So make sure to blast a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And consider joining the Discord, because it would be cool to talk to you and hear your thoughts and whatnot. Have an amazing day or night wherever you are, and may the Force be with you.